Morning journos here at the Emirates Stadium where Newcastle United have lost 1-0 to Arsenal. Close fought game. Declan Rice's second half strike, great strike to be fair. There's difference between the two sides and it's going to go down to the last day for Newcastle United as far as Champions League qualification is concerned. Your thoughts, Liam?
Was always going to go to the last day. I think we all knew that. Look, it would have been nice to have got something wrapped up today, walked away, drove back up the road as we head back to Newcastle this evening, knowing that everything was almost in the bag or much further on. But look, I think everybody thought they'd have to beat Everton on the last day. I see a lot of negativity. I did the live before. There was a lot of people slaughtering Gordon, slaughtering Wilson, slaughtering this, that and the other. Look, I think there was more to be proud about from Newcastle United there on that pitch today than there was to be negative about. Look, I get it. I understand the reasoning, the arguments. I would argue Newcastle United against the top teams in the Premier League are really poor away from home. Normally, that wasn't them today. That was a team who showed there was a lot on the line. The manager set them up brilliantly. It was a perfect tactical display. Look, Gordon slipped. There was an error. And it was a fantastic finish from Declan Rice. When you're at the top end of your game, whether that be in Europe, the Premier League, whatever, any sport you play, the finest of margins make the biggest difference. Yep. And that was a game that was decided on the finest of margins. I love that Newcastle United were in that fight today. I love that they were in that battle. And I'm disappointed as everyone else that they didn't get the result. They missed their chances in the first half. They deserved to be in front. And I think they controlled the majority of the game, apart from probably that 20 to 25 minutes after the second half. But look, you come to places like this against a team who's, went to the last four of European competition, the Premier European competition. They're the second best team in England. That's where they're going to finish. Whether you think the merits of the Premier League or it's great this year, it's not good, whatever. You only play and you only beat what's in front of you. But hey, the lights go out. Can you still see? But
we'll pause it. I'll put the light on.
Right, we'll put the light on and I'll come back to what I was saying.
Okay, so now we're in the bowels of the Emirates trying to...
Where was I?
Where were you, Liam?
We'll try the
light. We're making a point about Arsenal. Newcastle went toe-to-toe with one of the best teams in the country.
Yes.
And on another day, could have got something from the game.
They had them hanging on here. This is the second best team in England. The stats will prove that. They're in the last four teams in Europe in the Premier competition, the Champions League. This is a very good Arsenal, whether you think it's a good Premier League or not. And they were nearly at full strength. They had a lot of their best players back. Declan Rice, whoever else in the team, and Newcastle United were missing loads of players.
Yeah,
missing. Take Alexander Isak out of any team, or that level of player, they're going to struggle. Newcastle United didn't struggle. They didn't struggle. They went toe to toe. They had Arsenal panicking. They played some fantastic stuff in the first half. Some of the link-up play, that one for the Livramento chance in the first half was brilliant. It was counter-attack brilliance. It was Eddie Howe's Newcastle United counter-attack and brilliance at their best. All credit to the manager. He set the team up to frustrate, to catch on the break. It worked to a T. Look, they got under a bit of pressure. Gordon made a mistake. Then all of a sudden, he had to change the plan, and he did it again. He called on his bench, and he went to Kraft, Asula, and Miley. And reshaped, and then they came again a bit later on. I cannot fault. I see the negativity, I see the frustration, I get it. I cannot fault those lads out there, and I think the manager got it spot on. I think they've proven a little point today, because Newcastle United too often go to Liverpool, go to Aston Villa, go to whoever else it is at the top of the division, go to Chelsea,
Man City,
and that crap.
Yeah.
They don't get anywhere near. Newcastle United's record against the teams at the top of this division away from home is awful. They don't beat them and they don't perform. They just did today. So I'm certainly not going to sit here and criticism has been warranted at this time sometimes this season. I see the end of season revisionists talk about how this has been the most rosy season in Newcastle United's recent history. It hasn't.
No.
They've been rubbish in some games. Today was not it. That was not the day, and I'm quite proud of what I saw from those lads out there today. That's all my say on it.
Yeah, no, I think there was we're driving down, especially when you hear Alexander Isak's out the team, you go, God, it's another Liverpool. Callum Wilson's in from the coach.
You've spotted it, by the way.
Yes, I know, yeah. Well, we're filming the players come out off the coach. You saw Sven Botman, you were like, right, job done.
Job done.
I was like, Alexander Isak's not here.
I turned him and goes, what are you still filming for? He went, I've never seen Isak yet.
I was panicking, and then we'll go back in the press room, and then it's like, oh, Isak's not
I'm
here.
running about, telling everyone, Isak's not here. Everyone's panicking.
So, yeah, but that can have almost like a destabilising impact. It was a very late withdrawal, speaking to Eddie Howe after the game, and Yeah, I
this
think
morning.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It went for a scan this morning, then clear he couldn't play. And yeah, today's game had a risk of being quite a demoralising result going into the last game of the season. If you look back at the Premier League game here at the Emirates last year, they were battered 4-1. And if it was something like that going into the last day, you'd go below Chelsea going into the final day. It's a bit more out of your hands, and then you're trying to bounce back from a devastating defeat. Today, it was a defeat, but the performance didn't warrant that.
The manner of the defeat was all right. To get beat 1-0 was okay, because if the goal difference had gone to pot, then it becomes a problem on the last day.
Yeah.
A defeat, we said it on the way in, look, we didn't want to lose, but if you're going to lose, just keep it narrow, and then it keeps you in the fight, and that's all you ever want, just be in the fight.
Yeah.
Good.
Sorry, I'm
You
off.
got to say out the day.
No,
He's half asleep, you know.
I really am. I
He's
didn't
knackered.
actually the
He's
badge.
dreading this 6-hour drive home.
No, I get what you say. Like it was a first half when Newcastle played like the home team. You don't get that very often, as you say, when you go to places away from home. It was just a 10-minute period to start the second half. I just sort of switched off. I didn't start the second half very, very well.
No.
We're punished for that, but I thought even towards the end, Newcastle was still pushing.
Through the kitchen
Really,
sink,
really
man.
pushing. Nick Pope up for corners, and it was almost like I was thinking Arsenal could catch Newcastle, and then it's another goal, and it's a bit.
But did
bit
they switch
frustrating.
off in the start of the second half? Or was it just, a very good team at home actually getting control of the game a bit? They were always going to have their moments.
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
It's got to give respect to Arsenal as well. They're not rubbish.
It took them until Declan Rice scoring to get out of their own half in the second half. That's the only thing I'd say. They did start the second half slowly. Arsenal started it well. But yeah, in the first half as well, I think Arsenal had David Raya to thank. They had 5 shots on target in the first 20 minutes alone. Didn't get another shot on target during the game. There's a couple of sort of scrambles in the penalty area, a couple of clearances, things like that. And that was probably the one disappointing thing. They never tested the goalkeeper really after the first 20 minutes. And he's had to make a few good saves. I think Dan Burn probably has the best chance, that close range header. Bruno has a very good chance, but they're just straight at him. It's unfortunate. Tino Livramento, we said, having nosebleeds, he got in some great areas. I thought he had a great attacking performance in everywhere except the penalty area, where he actually had to finally get that shot on goal. And we were saying this is where maybe Lewis Hall has that technical quality
Might not
on
have got
the left.
there though.
Yeah,
In terms of Livramento,
there is that argument, I suppose.
He's a right athlete. Like.
I thought he was good. I thought Bruno in the first half was excellent, and then came alive again later in the game. Tonali, I think there was quite a few good performances. I understand the criticism directed at players like Callum Wilson and Anthony Gordon, because they were the more quiet players, and in Gordon's case in particular, where he has performed against Arsenal this season, didn't show up, and then at fault for the goal as well.
I didn't think Gordon was quiet, really. I actually thought he was quite lively. He just
Didn't have a shot.
no,
He was an
but he was an outlet. He was lively on the right hand side. He got into some good positions, but as you say, didn't really have any final bit of quality. But there's a bit. Where do you stand on? Because you think he played all right, didn't you?
I thought he was all right. I think he's quite. He tried to be brave with it. I think he was lacking in quality, and I think he was the man that Newcastle were looking to in the front line to have that quality. I think Harvey Barnes was a bit of a passenger again. I think somebody came to me in the live and said, "Why would you take an informed Harvey Barnes and not switch him? Put him on the left." Now, I sort of beg the question: is Harvey Barnes in form? Is he playing well enough to not warrant to be moving
Not
about
over
now?
the past
I think he's barely kicked the ball for a couple of weeks.
I do understand it maybe from that argument is the fact that Anthony Gordon came back in the team and then immediately went back on the left-hand side, whereas Harvey Barnes, when he was scoring goals, was playing on the left-hand side and he's been switched out. But I've always said, and I stand by this, between those two players, I take Anthony Gordon every single day of the week, and if that's his preferred position, I'll put him there. But I do think, as much as he was lively today, I do think he probably was Newcastle a real good performance at the end of the season to get them over the line.
Possibly against his old club as well.
Yeah.
Well, he hasn't scored a Premier League goal since January. His last goal in any competition was against Arsenal at St James's Park. Okay, he hasn't started a lot of games in recent months, but yeah, I think he, asked Eddie Howe.
Scores on Sunday, man.
I think he'll be bang up for a goal.
Kisses the badge.
Scores on Sunday.
I think he'll be bang up for it.
Yeah, I think so.
Let's hope so. Because I asked Eddie Howe about him in the pre-match press conference, saying he's a big game player for you, and Eddie Howe was sort of like, hey, he needs to deliver though. He needs to put those performances in that warrant him being there.
So who's the other talking point? Wilson. Because a
Wilson's
lot
a
of
big
other
talking
criticism
point.
came on Wilson. What's your thoughts?
So I thought he was good for the first half an hour, held the ball up relatively well, but then from then on just totally faded, and I don't Look, I think people have seen, oh, Callum Wilson's finished. I do sympathise with him a little bit because we keep using this phrase, but he hasn't had a run of games. It's only second.
He's never going to get one.
Start. And he's 2 starts season, away to Liverpool and away to Arsenal. So that's quite difficult to
thankless tasks as a lone striker, which he is in his system. It's a 5-4-1. It's nothing more or nothing less.
Yeah. Sorry, go on.
No, I just think he lives or dies by those around him, and the quality wasn't there from Gordon today, and definitely wasn't there from Harvey Barnes. And it's difficult for the fullbacks to really impact the game, with Murphy having to do a lot of defending in a game like this, which I thought he stuck to his task reasonably well.
He was decent.
I thought the centre-halves were decent. I thought Dan Burn had a really good physical game.
I thought Fabian Schär and Sven Botman were really good again.
Yeah, they were.
It was just that one moment that stopped them getting a clean sheet, which I thought would have been deserved.
So my thoughts on Callum Wilson, it might be controversial, it might not. I think it's in my opinion, and I've said this before, I don't want to see Callum Wilson remain at the football club. That's not because I don't think he's been a good player. It's not because I don't rate him as a player or whatever. I think Newcastle needs something different. That department, in my opinion, needs freshening up. And I don't think Callum Wilson, even if he gets a run of games, even if he's fit, at his age and where he's at in his career, the injuries he's had, I don't think he's the man. So I would like to see that freshened up. I think there's big question marks about whether Will Asula is also the man, but he's a very raw young lad who still has a lot to learn. Yeah. On Wilson, though, before you were going to jump in on Asula, on Wilson, I do think some of it's a little bit harsh, in my opinion. Newcastle United have probably gone way past what Callum Wilson is. Callum Wilson's never operated. I thought they were going to come and chuck out there. They were we're getting eyed again, the Geordie journals. Callum Wilson's never in his career operated as a top 3, 4, 5 Premier League striker. He's never been in that company.
Would you not class him as that 2 years ago?
He signed for Newcastle. Not really, no. He signed for Newcastle United. Right, okay. So you're saying it was a...
When he scores 18 Premier League goals in a season where Newcastle come fourth. That's Callum Wilson's peak.
Has had 2 years out since. So that has taken its toll. I don't necessarily think, I'm not going to buy into this rubbish where it says he's finished. I don't think he will. I think he'll go and play bits and bobs. He's going to have injuries. He's that type of player. But I think he's still got a career ahead of him. I think he can go somewhere else and do well for somebody. I don't think he's a championship player. I think he's got something in him left. I don't think it's here. Because I think what Newcastle United need is a player to come in and impact games at Champions League level. And 2 years older Wilson from 2 years ago is not the Champions League level affecting games player. I don't think he's ever operated at that level, so I think it's unfair to judge him by those standards in some ways. However, you guys made a counterpoint, which is a really interesting one, to my argument. Jacob Murphy's able to perform at that level. A couple of others have stepped up and moved with the times. You're going to get that in teams. This team has probably left Sean Longstaff behind. Yeah. This team has probably left Callum Wilson behind. This team is going to keep leaving people behind as it moves and moves. And now, that day was a second-place shootout. Newcastle United stood toe-to-toe with a team. Newcastle might end up finishing 6th or 7th. Today was a nip and tuck. It was tight to finish second. That's what would have happened today if they'd won here today, and it was close. They probably were better than Arsenal. That, to me, is progress. That's a real sign of progress. What isn't progress is probably when you look at the fixtures, apart from this one, against all of the teams at the top end of the Premier League, away from home. That's when Newcastle United need to start competing. They need to be able to go to Man City and do something. It's not about going to Man United or Tottenham and winning. Oh yeah, we've done that. They've been rubbish. Yeah. They don't count anymore this season. Yeah. They don't. What they didn't do, they didn't even win at 8th place Brentford. They got beat. They didn't win at Man City. They were 6th. They didn't win at Brighton. They haven't beat the teams.
Forest is the highest team that beat away
Forest,
from home.
yeah. So they won at Forest, and they did really well today. They need to change that around. They got stuffed at Villa. They got stuffed at Man City. They got stuffed at Liverpool. If Liverpool wanted to beat them more, they would have beat them more that night. Yeah.
Liverpool win first gear and beat them.
So this is the next sort of bastion, the next sort of mountain Newcastle United need to climb. Is can they do what they've just done today consistently? Can you go everywhere at the top end of the Premier League and put up a fight?
Yeah. I think we saw that though, like the nature of what Newcastle's glaring problem is, where the consistency comes from having probably more than 11, 12 players you can rely on.
The squad's
when
failing now.
Eddie Howe, as much as I thought Will Asula, Emil Kraft and Lewis Miley came on and actually played well today, if those are the 3 players you turn into to impact a game, to help you qualify for the Champions League, Emil Kraft is a squad player. Will Asula championship level with a bright future ahead of him, and Lewis Miley's a teenager.
Dom, I'm going to stop you here, right, because I know what's coming. Dom's been on the butt of some criticism this week because of what I put out about Jacob Murphy. You said Jacob Murphy needs to be a right-hand side improvement in the team.
Yes.
And that they've got a top world-class front three. And I agree with that. I'm with Dom, by the way. I think that's what needs to happen. I think Jordan agrees as well.
Yeah.
So that's not what you're saying when you talk about Kraft, Asula, Miley, is not a criticism of those players.
No.
But they are, at this moment in time, of a level.
And I'm talking about in an ideal world, if Newcastle want to be competing at the very, very top of the Premier League, Jacob Murphy, who is a 30-year-old winger who is enjoying a season well beyond his par for the course season.
Recent seasons would suggest.
Yes. He's having that Miguel Almiron flash in the pan over an extended period.
Much longer.
Yeah. 20 goal contributions, incredible. In an ideal world, Jacob Murphy is the squad player coming on to make an impact, or is the player coming on in the games like Everton at home, like your Brentfords away, Brighton, things like that, maybe playing the odd Champions League game. But then you have a player who, ideally, like an Anthony Gordon on the opposite side, who is contributing those 20 goal assists, what Jacob Murphy has done this season, but on a consistent basis. Not to say Jacob Murphy can't do it, but
Jacob Murphy this season has been a stick and plaster on the right-hand side. I would suggest he is not going to be a consistent performer for the next 3 or 4 years at the level he is. And I love him, by the way.
He's perfect as well because he's versatile. He played right wing back, he's played left, he played in a few roles just against Chelsea last week. I think he's a perfect player for Newcastle United. But let's be honest, anyone who's seriously watching these videos and watching Newcastle actually with their own eyes this season, no, Jacob Murphy is not the long-term answer.
This is the thing that baffles me about certain reactions on social media. Watch with your own eyes. Don't just don't be a sheep and follow the crowds and look to see what the most popular opinion is and follow it online. Just watch the blokes with your own eyes, and if you disagree and you've already watched with your own eyes, and that's fine, we'll have a little Barney about it on here, and we love that. We love that. We love you telling us your opinions.
Yeah.
How about Jordan? Chip in before you fall asleep.
It's kind of a few tangents, yeah.
Well, why not?
Jacob Murphy tangent, he wasn't even a problem today.
He was
Jacob Murphy showed exactly the player
he had a good game.
Really
I thought he did. I just think that, go back to the result, I think it changes nothing today. It changes absolutely nothing. They've got to go and win next week, and that's end of. And I think they will.
I think they will too.
Yeah, I think they will.
I think Newcastle, it was always going to be this way. We've been saying for weeks on here, and I think you've all probably been agreeing with me, you had to win your home games. They did it last week, they've got to do it next week. End of story. They will win the home game, I'm sure of it.
If they don't have Isak, how does it change things, you reckon?
It's a more of a problem.
They haven't scored from open play without him in the team this season in the Premier League.
Only 4 games in it, but
yeah, it's a small sample size. No goals from open play.
I'm not going to pay any significance to that at all.
No.
Eddie
Howe brushed it off.
He's barely been not in the team to even make a case for that.
Yeah. No, I agree.
I would consider, do you play Callum Wilson or not? That would be a question.
Yeah.
I said to you, I would potentially go back to your 4-3-3 at home against Everton, and you probably look to say, can you get Barnes on one side, Murphy on the other, and can you go Gordon through the middle? Can you do something like that?
Which is what they did at Goodison Park, by the way.
Yeah. Can you do something like that?
Do you think the 5 at the back allows them to get on top of teams a little bit more, though?
Yeah, but at home, they're going to have to open doors.
But they're really aggressive today.
Yeah.
And it's like you've got spaces of Team Livramento popping up in centre midfield.
Livramento was brilliant today.
He's all over the place. Has been for the past few games. When I thought against Chelsea he was everywhere, today it was the same. It's just one of them. If he was just a bit more composed on the ball, he's looking at a player. You're looking at a player who could get 3-4 goals a season.
That's the next level for Tino Livramento, who's a young lad, still learning his trade, still coming up through the game. The next step for him is, can you add some kind of end product to your game? If he can do that, then he's a cracking player on Newcastle's books. Cracking player. Can he add that Lewis Hall flash of quality? If he can, even we've talked about in the past, who's got a higher ceiling? Is it Hall? Is it Livramento off the camera and stuff? Yeah. If Livramento can add a final ball, his athleticism, his size, his speed, he's the perfect fullback. Literally, it'll be no surprise that everybody in world football will want him if he adds end product.
No.
But he might not. He might never do it.
I really like that 5 at the back system. I think the function.
I just think against Everton at home, though. Everton at home.
But I think you have your 3 centre halves, and you've literally got extra wide support and Murphy and Livramento.
Yeah.
I think you can proper pile on top of them. I thought we've seen that here today, flashes today.
There's a control about it, control like they've never played like that before.
But they were able to get bodies forward, and to be fair, brave tactics by the hour was literally the 3 centre halves were pushed right on the halfway.
You make a great point, mate. I think.
Even tired, and I still managed to
just thinking about the control that they had for large periods of the game today, against a good side.
Yeah.
It does allow them to control games, although it's a bit of an Arsenal formation. They cannot work that out.
No.
They cannot get to grips with a 5. It's shown this season a few times, hasn't it?
Yeah.
Look at the aggregate score that Newcastle United have had against Arsenal this season. You'll take that.
The one goal they've conceded, a wonder strike. They haven't actually opened Newcastle up as such, really. In 4 games? They've had probably 60 corners, haven't scored from any of them.
Set pieces was the only way they really looked like opening Newcastle today, didn't it?
But you have to give credit to Eddie Howe, because one thing that was almost like a running theme of last season was when Newcastle were up against it, or up against certain teams, he was very loyal to the 4-3-3. They didn't really deviate from that too much. I think they did against Spurs one game and then never looked at it really again. And then it didn't work at Palace, and then it never seen again. I think he's turned to it a few times this season and it's really clicked 3 or 4 times. I'm not saying it absolutely clicked today, but it kept Newcastle very competitive in the game.
Centre-halves are good at it, aren't they?
Yeah.
The centre-halves, because Cher's brilliant on the ball. What they get caught is the ball's over the top, and that's where you need the full-backs to cover.
I'm surprised, because Villa worked it out a little bit. Villa worked them out quite a few times, but and Man City done it as well. That's the only thing, actually. So I think as opposition manager, I'm no tactician, but I think if Newcastle are going to play that 5 at the back just as much, I really like to ping out the top.
They need a bit quicker, don't they?
Yeah.
They need somebody at the moment, which is what they're going to try to address in the summer. Right, I feel like we've been around the houses, but I think we should do a video midweek this week. I think there's a few talking points.
Plenty to talk about.
There's lots to talk about. There's a big game on Sunday, big game on Saturday. We might even delve in. Can we? No, we talked about we might actually delve into our opinions on that, because I've seen some knacker. No idea who the knacker is, by the way. He's probably somebody famous. I don't know, but I didn't recognise his name. Some knacker on the BBC talking about how much he'd love to see Sunderland, Newcastle fan, how much he'd love to see Sunderland back in the Premier League. I thought we were going to maybe address that this week.
Okay, we can do.
Be interesting. I think we should do it.
Okay.
I'm not really that bothered if they come up, but I know what my opinion is on whether I want them to.
Save that for midweek.
Okay.
It's been a controversial subject for me in the past as well, so I'm going out on a limb here.
Yeah. Could maybe put a poll out as well, see what the
Yeah.
viewers think. But
there's room for a couple of ones, like, what I suppose the match preview and build-up probably, if we can look to get together on Friday, I could come and meet you guys and we'll do like a big video on Friday out of it. Yeah, the media centre.
Let's do it.
Well, we could address the black cat in the room.
I like that.
But on that note, we need a word from our sponsors.
Yeah.
Comply IT Limited. Worrying about disposing of your old IT equipment? Don't be. Comply IT handle everything. Secure collection, detailed tracking, and certified data destruction. That's Comply IT Limited. 4 Rivers Financial Planning. 4 Rivers Financial Planning offer holistic financial advice for all stages of life, ensuring your plan remains robust and adaptable in the ever-changing world we live in. So yeah, those are our 2 sponsors, links in the description below. And if you like what we do, please remember to like, comment, share, subscribe and ring the bell for all your latest Geordie Journos content. As Liam just alluded to, we'll be doing a video through the week and we'll definitely be doing one back at the Newcastle United Media Centre, looking ahead to that all-important game against Everton.
I can't wait. Do you know that?
It's going to be a long week.
These are today, next Sunday. I dreamed of Newcastle United being in these battles.
Yeah.
Embrace it.
It's a lot better than relegation battle.
We did a video on Newcastle World. Do you not remember before one of the, I think it was maybe the quarter-final or the semi-final, it was like, embrace it. Newcastle United fans, embrace this feeling. This is what you want every single year. Newcastle United to be in these fights.
It was Arsenal, but it was Arsenal semi-final at St James's Park when everyone was like, "Oh, I'm so nervous." Like, well, you're doing a lot.
I was extremely nervous, man. Come on.
But there will be nerves ahead of Sunday.
Aye, there's
they're not 2-0 up then.
No, hopefully within 20 minutes.
That would be nice.
Yes. So on that note,
Yep.
Let's do it.
see you in the next video.